Usage context is a way of putting some kind of a wrapper around that functionality, right? So it's a way of sort of taking it, out of its sort of raw state and putting it into a place where you can potentially have real meaning. Real meaning, again, is real meaning for real people. It has impact, hopefully a positive impact for the people you're trying to reach. So business functionality needs some kind of business wrapper, meaning it needs some kind of business usage context. When I say business, I don't mean Bay Street necessarily. I mean whatever your business is, whatever the business is of the site owner. And it could be a library, it could be, my daughter, for example, last night did her first website. She's at OCAD, and it sort of leaps through different pictures. That's her business. Her business is to show off her artwork to her professors and ultimately to other people, perhaps to employers. That's the business of her site. So I don't mean business literally in terms of it's all about profits. It's about what are you trying to accomplish, what's important to you. So anyway, business functionality needs a business wrapper, so you have to understand what the business is in that sense. So, business wrapper. So here's a subtle thing. A lot of usability, it's not sort of earth-shattering stuff. It's minute, subtle stuff. I think one reason, if I have any talent at all for usability, it's my low pain threshold. Remember I said it's about a lack of suffering? Right? And I use that. I use that as a way of guiding myself into something which could be better. Right? So a lot of that can get into really sort of subtle things in terms of perception. So for example, if you see some things, some elements on a screen in a user interface, and they appear to be sort of randomly associated, well, it's not going to be a very meaningful connection with that. If you do something using some sort of cultural, reference or some kind of perceptual sort of trick or whatever, like something that looks familiar, a bit familiar, you have a chance of actually getting through. You can use that to get through, to make that connection, to make something a bit more meaningful for someone. So, sorry, I'm behind my slides here. So if you rearrange it to something which everybody knows what ABC is, right? I mean, ABC is just it's a metaphor. It's at a meta level here. But something that looks logical like that is going to, help the user. Oh, I see it goes from here to here to here. I get that. I can do that. But if it's not somehow presented in that level, and we're talking about sort of hierarchy of things and association of things and so on, then they might just be scratching their head, for the whole time. Again, another kind of reference, another way to do that kind of trick, get people to think of things, evoke things, metaphors or whatever, to get them to understand how to interact with something because it relates to something they're familiar with. You can use tricks like that. It's a bit of sleight of hand, but you can use it. So does this suggest anything to anyone? Any guesses? Just curious. Sorry? Yeah, that's what he thought too. So yeah, see, there's a commonality there, right? So that kind of thing is a technique that you can use to sort of have that connection a bit more solid. So I'm sort of roughly calling it recognition and connection. You want to recognize it, you want to feel connected to it. So from a usability point of view, usability design point of view, we have to be on the lookout for things that are going to interfere with recognition and connection. That's what breaks down meaning. So here's a list of things. If things are too abstract, too unfamiliar, if there's too many things on the screen, if there are things you're looking for that you can't find them, or there's things that are just there too much, or it's just for no apparent reason, it's just there. These are just kind of very high level kind of it's a bit of a hypothesis really. Let's see if we can look at some user interface from this point of view and look for these kinds of things, and if we can find them and fix them, maybe we come up with a better design. Flesh out a little bit. Abstract. There again, we've got this dichotomy between the perspective of the developer and the perspective of the user they're trying to reach. The developer, by nature, by definition, has to work with things that are abstract. And that's why it's kind of hard for developers, for us to see it, as abstract. That's what we work with. It's familiar. But for a user, it can be baffling. too unfamiliar. I mean, the traffic light was familiar, right? So there was a commonality of the kind of the cultural space there. Idioms, it's the semantics. That's another reason why I didn't want to use visual entirely, because semantics are also important behind all this stuff. Does it make sense? Too many things. The opposite of too many things is something which is task-oriented. Only the things you need to do this task are there. That would be nice. Too hidden. What's the cost of finding stuff? Interaction cost is a very, very significant factor in usability design. What's the value for putting that effort into it? Too exposed versus minimal redundancy. Minimal redundancy, you may have heard me say this before, but that's my definition of art, right? Nothing too much and nothing too little. Nothing missing, nothing excessive, right? And I think it applies to any design. It certainly applies to user interfaces. I think also this applies to coding. I think any good developer knows that, right? That's what refactoring is all about.